What's going on, everybody? Like, follow, share, and subscribe to your boy, DJ Vision. Better get right into this. I'm not going to be too long-winded as far as describing it. I'm going to let the videos talk for themselves. Give my commentary, 2 or 3 cents, and we're going to keep the ball rolling. See if we get some conversation going on. I'm going to go ahead and get a few people on here. Share this out. Like I said, like, follow, share, and subscribe. Shout out to all my sponsors as well. And we will be shouting out our sponsors at the end of the day. But like, follow, share, and subscribe to your boy DJ Vision. All right, let's go.
Passions, Father, the Son.
Okay, we're going to do this back. You may have an echo, so let me fix this because I really think I got to be doing this before.
It's sort of the background, and that's what this means. It's the background of 73% of all of the peoples in Africa today. 73%. The PN2 is found in West Africa and sub-equatorial Africa. The P2 or M2 as it's called. This M35, 215 M35 is what you find in the Horn of Africa up to Egypt and over to Morocco. It corresponds to the 5 and the 11 in the previous slide. This is the father of both groups of Africans. This binds the continent together. Okay? So although you have Berbers with blue eyes and blonde hair, etc., they share, for the most part, this PN2 ancestry with people in West and tropical Africa. This is the modern population. Mm-hmm. And they share much less of the M89, which comes off the tree in another way. I'm going to finish here. This is an old slide. I'll just stop here. Okay, well, that's where it stopped anyway, doesn't it? Okay. All right.
Any questions about Shamarka's presentation? Okay.
You mentioned about there being a European 60,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me when they first went into Egypt? When the Mediterranean people first went into Egypt?
When I talk about 60,000 years ago, there being no modern people in Europe, what I'm saying is the best evidence that we have for modern people being anatomically what we call anatomically modern people in any part of Europe is at the outside 40,000 years. Okay. And when you talk about Mediterranean people, we need to talk about that later on because, as I have said and tried to say, Africans don't all look alike. So some of what you're calling Mediterranean people are just some more Africans. Okay. Now you have to get your arms around that. And that's what that last slide was about with the PN2 transition. Because most of the people there who have that PN2 transition, like that genealogy,
trying to hold on to the idea
of M35, for example, Berbers are M35, M81. Those people don't look like Congolese. But I'm trying to have you understand that they are carrying genealogically, in terms of their male ancestry at least, they're carrying something that ties them to the rest of the continent and does not tie them to Europe, even though physically, externally, you may say, well, gee, they look like Europeans. Right. You understand what I'm saying? So when you ask me, when did X, we don't use those concepts of Mediterranean race, Alpine race, Nordic race, all that's from another era. Right. You know, it's descriptive. And in actual fact, you will find... you can find individuals all over the world who might conform to one of those sort of categories. You see what I'm saying? Right. So that's
the same thing they say about being Arab. Arab is a culture, not a race.
It's just a language.
Okay, but I'm trying to understand what are you asking me here? Well, you asked me very specifically. You asked me, when did Mediterranean people get to Egypt? I don't know what you mean by Mediterranean people. But let me repeat myself.
Africa.
No, well, there's more than one way to be African. There's more than one way to look African. That's how people think. There's more than one way to look Asian. There's more than one way to be Asian.
Thanks.
That is what you have to, from my perspective as an evolutionary biologist, that's what you have to get your arms around. The people in southern India are just as Asian as the people in northern China.
They're Asian.
Who are just as Asian as the people from the Eurasian steppes.
Right.
You know, they don't look alike. And you measure them, they don't look alike.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me put it another way. For example, you have Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra.
Okay. Well, what do you mean? What are you talking about?
When did that sort of look into Egypt?
The thing is that number one, who's Cleopatra?
I'm asking you.
Well, what I'm saying, Cleopatra was probably a Macedonian. Well, she was a Macedonian.
From near Greece.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. When the people that look like that go into Egypt.
Well, I don't know about Elizabeth Taylor specifically,
But
and very specifically. But I would dare to say that within the Nile Valley, within the Nile Quarter, within super-Saharan Africa, there have always been people who were lighter skinned and straight ahead from 60,000 years ago.
60,000.
They're not new. That's my whole point. In fact, I could make the argument that those kinds of characteristics actually originated in Africa.
Thanks.
That they didn't come from someplace else.
Right.
They're part of modern humanity, or they're part of humanity. And there's no reason to believe that they could not have originated in Africa. Incidentally, skin color can flip back and forth from an evolutionary point of view. We now know every 15,000 or so years. It's not the sort of thing that, it takes 100,000 years, million years to live in one place. And skin color itself is not always an accurate index, even in current situations like in Brazil and Venezuela. It doesn't necessarily give you a proportionate amount of ancestry. You can have people with very fair skin, but actually have more quote unquote black ancestors than some people who are actually darker. So you have to be very careful about what you think you can quantify from that, again, based on science evidence. Now, the issue of having narrow features, a narrow face, and what have you, we have remains, and normally I would show you the slide, but we're not going to get to that today, of people from Gambel's Cave in East Africa down in Kenya that are probably about 10 to 12,000 years old. If you measure them up and submit them to a forensic type analysis, they'll cluster with Europeans. They're not Europeans. Their limb ratios are as tropical as you can be. They come from right there. That's what you have to be on.
Charlie, you could ask more questions later. I'd like to give somebody else a chance, and you could carry on later, yeah? Anybody else? Okay, we need to stop. Oh, okay, sorry, yeah.
I mean, you place stock in Darwin's theory of evolution, and I'm just trying to get an idea from what the questions I'm hearing is. I mean, what would you define then as an African?
I don't define an African or the African. There is a matrix of variability that constitutes a description of an African reality. Very different notion. The moment you start defining things with narrow terms, and in particular ways, and a non-scientific for something that's as fluid as this, is the moment that you will get into trouble, because then you're going to be forced to explain things, like I said, with typological methods or deductive methods,
like you said,
when they don't fit.
Based on the circumference.
It's a shame we ran out of time for this section, because that would have been really fascinating. It's just that you said there's and I do hear your point. There's diversity within the African identity or spectrum.
Not the skin.
It just feels that if there is no
capacities,
I mean, we don't just need to talk about the African identity. I mean, I don't subscribe to the notion of race either. I think if we're using terms like African or Egyptian, which is probably more geopolitical in that context, but if we're using terms like that to define a reality, surely there must be a boundary, or so it isn't diversity we're talking about. We're talking about an entirety of the human race, which is one, and then we start to lose.
No, you don't lose.
Where's the barriers for the diversity?
No, you don't lose anything, because you have your model-based approach. You have a real history of a species that emerged in Africa. You have some real fossils. You have some real people that you can look at. You have some real DNA evidence that ties together. Frankly, I was quite astounded when I found that when the Y chromosome data got produced, they didn't have that 25 years ago when I first started on this adventure. But I am pleased to say that I wrote, and you can get my master's thesis. I said, there's no theoretical reason why these Berbers from Algeria couldn't share common ancestors in the late Pleistocene. And sure enough, 20 years later, when the DNA came out, because what most people would say is they look at these Berbers, and I have pictures of them, they say, oh, these are descendants of the Vandals because they look like Europeans. Well, I'm trying to have you understand that God or evolution, whichever one you want to choose to work with, works in mysterious ways. And I'm trying to have you understand that from a scientific point of view, that PN2 marker, that PN2 gene, ties 70% of the continent together. And there's some other things that are basically only restricted to Africa, except for the odd one you find outside, groups A and B. This belong to the E group. We can talk about that later. But no, what you're saying is that if you don't have some hard and fast boundaries, then it's hard for you to work with certain things. And I'm saying that would be like saying that if your son, if you had 6 sons and one of them moved to China and his descendants were only Chinese, and one moved to Greenland and his descendants were only Inuit, and another son moved to, I don't know, the Amazon and his descendants were only, folks from the Amazon, that they wouldn't be your relatives. That would not patently be not true. Genealogically, they would all be connected to you because you're the grandpa. They're still connected. The idea that physical similarity will always track with relationship is what we're trying to get. I'm trying to dispel you of that notion because it's not always true. And so there's sometimes people who may look very similar, or when you measure certain things, they may appear to be similar based on the math, but in actual fact, using other measures and other kinds of information, you know that can't possibly be true. So when I go down to when I go to some village in the Sudan and I say that guy looks just like guy at the conference in London, I mean, they must be. Oh, no, it's not your twin brother. It's an accident. It's an accident. There's something in physical anthropology and evolutionary biology called polytopicity. And polytopicity was a problem for early evolutionary biologists who were interested in taxonomy and classification. Why? Because polytopicity refers to the fact that you have similar looking groups of organisms, or you have a group of organisms in one place that looks very similar to another group of organisms in another in terms of whether it was their wing shape, their morphology, in terms of things you can measure. But the dilemma was, should you group these things together when one was 10,000 miles away from the other and there was no way that one got from one place to the other? In other words, they were not closely historically connected. So it's called polytopicity. It's one of the problems with the subspecies concept for zoologists, and subspecies concept in zoology is the same as the race idea for human beings. Only with human beings, there's even more problems than there were for the zoologists. Problem of classification. So my human example of polytopicity is certain people from Vanuatu and Papua New Guinea and those places who, for everybody who just sees them on the street, based on your own social experience, you say, these look like Africans. These are Africans. Well, no, they're not. No, they're not. Their lineage DNA says they're not. Where they live says they're not. And their languages definitely put them very far afield. But they live in tropical climates. Modern humans were tropical to begin with. Are these retentions from early migrations? Or are they just reacquisitions of tropical traits? Now, no one can answer that. But their DNA clearly ties them to Asia. I mean, the lineage DNA. And there's some other interesting things about DNA too. Other markers, and I have to finish now. Other markers clearly, in terms of lines of descent, tie together not just simply all of humanity. You can forget that there's some other more specific markers that tie people from China all the way to Africa together.
Yeah.
And it's like amazing. That's the YAP marker. There used to be a debate, did the YAP marker arise in Africa, arise in Asia? If you say the YAP marker arose in Asia, then you're saying most of all Africans today came from Asia. I know certain people don't want to hear that, those who are ideologically oriented in particular ways. But the proof, so to speak, is that number one, that wasn't very logical based on the dates of the emergence of the YAP marker. But also within Nigeria today, they found some people who have the YAP marker. That's a long story, but anyway, it sort of submits that Africa is the place of origin for this particular marker. Okay.
At the time when the Homo sapiens first emerged from Africa, they were Negroes at that time.
What do you mean? No, I don't use that. No, I don't use that term Negro.
Yeah, I don't mean so. I'm just trying to make a strong point where they black.
Well, in terms of their skin color, they would have been dark based on ecological principles. Based on principles, that's our guess. Do we have any empirical proof?
You could be dark and Asian, or you could be dark and black. That's what I'm saying. Sorry to use the word Negro, but at the time, the day of being Negroes coming out of Africa.
I don't know what you mean by Negro. And right. I wouldn't use that word. I wouldn't use that word. No. Yeah, well, if
keep saying black,
I will say that they were dark.
I pulled you out of that realm.
I don't know how
you
dark.
Gotta use these realms.
And they had limb ratios that are tropical.
It's almost like everybody has to use these terms.
Okay, those are all things that, based on biological principles, would tie them to where they are.
Light skin
and most
humans were light skin and
most scientists will say yes, they would have been dark. How dark, I can't tell you. They wouldn't have been blonde. No, if that's what you're asking. If that's the hidden question underneath, they wouldn't have been blonde.
In other words, they would have been African. From Africa, it would have been.
At that moment in time, you're talking about a species history. Okay.
Okay,
it's a different issue.
Wind down now. There's no more questions. You're welcome to talk to Shamaka with the coffee and teas. What I'd like to do is thank you for an excellent workshop. Really enjoyed that. I'm sure other people have, even if they might have been quiet. They were absorbing it all, I'm sure.
Okay,
so thank you.
Well, you about to get into this one? I gotta start this one straight from the beginning. Before I do that, gotta pause. Then I gotta come in, cause you know me. Nah. Oh. Nah. Oh, shit. I guess. There we go. Nah. I mean, so you tell me what makes sense. So they're basically saying there's no prototype African people that like to do ride off the wave with the melanin, dispelling you of that. You could just take that somewhere else, basically. So you people coming up with narratives saying, all right, just Africans was just one way. That's like me saying a person from one tribe can't be light-skinned and dark-skinned from the same tribe, same place, born in the same area with no other people that mix with them. That's what they keep. They don't know how to do. Well, we don't know how to make that valid point. I mean, it's plain and simple. But for those who don't understand that terminology, because you got to hold on to things like identity politics. Identity politics allows you to be comfortable with subgrouping yourself in a box that's inside of boxes. So if you're in a box inside of boxes, it'll be easy for you to move around instead of breaking outside of the box and living in the true sense of we're all the same. We're all human beings. We all come from the same place. And all this division is artificial and manufactured. It comes from it makes you feel good to look at other people's differences and call yourself special. It helps. It's a certain spot in the heart of a human that can charm that kind of need. But that's not necessarily. You see how society wrapped itself around that and created that. And that separated everybody else. But like you said, I mean, the only thing that separates Africa from Asia is the Himalayan mountains in between. The Himalayan mountain people are technically Asian. Those are what we like to call Caucasians. So even in the name is Asian, Caucasian, Caucasoid Asian, Caucasus Mountains of Asia. It's in the literal, they built it in the name so they wouldn't forget exactly where they came from. They're not stupid. We just say black, you're just black. That don't even mean shit because you don't know if you're from North Africa, West Africa, West Indies, South Africa, mixed, cow herders, you have no idea. So then when you get to eating certain foods or living a certain way, you may be contradicting your natural balance with nature. That ain't got nothing to do with how you was even supposed to be living. My point to say is, in general, in totality, religious or not, we as human beings got to come to a certain concordance and use more of our brain. I'm not even going to say common sense, but more of our brain to come to a conclusion that most of us have more in common than we realize. I have more in common than white Germans that I never met before, strangely, than a lot of blacks. And that only comes from knowing heritage only. That alone. That alone. Just knowing heritage, they value that. That group of people value that. When they see that I value that in me, they respect me more as a person, and they even speak to me different. Being in law enforcement, I done met securities and just even me being involved in entertainment business. White Germans. People think of white Germans as Adolf Hitler's. You don't lost your mind if you don't realize that most of them weren't like that. Most of them hated that. That's why it was millions of them that died for hating that. So when we have a different perspective on who we're dealing with, then we don't group everybody that looks like a certain subgroup in a certain category. Hence, identity politics. I'm with this identity. I'm with this group. I'm with the subgroup. I'm politically affiliated, and I'm just gonna ride with this. It was never even supposed to be that deep. So in general, me saying that, we need to understand what's going on in our country. Socialism, the propagandists, and all of these things, and the real disinformation. You know what I'm saying? So once we get a grasp upon that, then we can move forward as a world, not even as a country, because don't even minute it. Make it expanded. Make it universal as a world. If the Asians know that the Americans respect what's going on as far as not being enemies, it wouldn't even have to be a back and forth. If Africa wasn't in war based on them damn minerals, it wouldn't have to be a back and forth. If America wasn't going through it with the shit that's we already gone through within our shit, the corruption and everything that we going through right now, of somebody that they called the most popular president in world history ended up being the most unpopular president to the date of today. We got to survey certain things, look at certain things and figure out, okay, well, for everybody who want to be white liberals and black liberals and Democrats, are you tired of old white men being the head of your party? Either yes or no. And if you are, then maybe it's not even about the color. Because when you had the black one in there, did he do anything? Except for sexualize the nation. The Obama kid. Google it. Just Google the Obama kid. Just do that little Google real quick. Just certain things, you know. Pizzagate. I mean, these things have been out there. You know, not conspiracy theories. I don't do too much conspiracy. But I always tell people it's more good guys than bad guys as far as idea. If one good guy take out 50 bad guys, then the idea is better. You don't necessarily have to have the numbers. Some people always think you need more good guys and bad guys to win a fight. One guy could take out 50 people, 50 bad guys, and that's not necessarily the fight that you need to worry about. So we're going to finish this one, and then we're going to continue. I'm going to get commentary on this one. Basically, continuing the dispelling of the myth of race, that basically the best description is Aboriginals from Australia. Blonde hair, light skin, and they have brown skin and straight hair and blonde hair and brown hair. They have every genetic type. They have every little genetic type. Blue eyes, brown eyes. They have every genetic type in their DNA. Every single genetic type. Every genetic. I don't even. So that's why I say when people shout out shit like Mediterranean human beings, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, bro? Like you, as if a human being's birthed up out the dirt in the Mediterranean and they spread out. Like, stop that. That's not historic. That's not how you judge history. You don't say that word doesn't even describe people that were there before that word came there. So even coming off of the cliff like that is just illogical when it comes to surveying mathematics and history on a logic standpoint without putting your damn emotions into the shit. That seems like that's what's going on. Once you sway your emotions along with certain stuff, you alter the data. Then once you alter the data, you can spew whatever you want. Let's get it. I'm gonna explode this, and then we're gonna come back with commentary. Appreciate y'all for joining. Like, follow, share, and subscribe to your boy, DJ Vision.
Yeah, no, it's Sudan. So what's your point then? Do you understand? You're saying no country.
Let these two talk.
You're telling me no country has suffered colonization like your country.
No, that's not what I said. We don't have a monopoly. We don't have a monopoly. We don't have a monopoly of that. That's not what I said.
Egypt, Ireland, across the war, half an hour.
Yeah, I know.
Suffered as well.
That's not what I'm saying. That wasn't what I was saying. We're not talking about other people though.
Why not just Sudan? You want to talk about just Sudan?
No, because we're talking about Africa. So why would we bring up Ireland? Why would we bring up Ireland?
Because you're talking about colonization.
No, I was talking about in the context of Africa. We don't. If we could talk about everyone, we could talk about Japan if we wanted to. They were colonized too. But that's not what we're doing. So I assumed that's what we were at. So I don't know why you're going to other.
You didn't provide me any evidence.
A picture isn't evidence. I asked you before. I asked you exactly. No, listen. I asked you 20 minutes ago for citation. You never gave me a single citation. Okay, give me the name of the professor, the word, and the year.
No, so then I'm not proving I'm African. I'm trying to show her that regardless.
That's Wikipedia. That's not a citation. Wikipedia is not an academic. She can write Wikipedia is not an academic. So you would have to find me somewhere else.
Regardless of how much Sudan suffered.
I'm not talking about Sudan.
Okay, so then what's the aim of this conversation?
That's why I went on to Libya. I was saying that's how you can tell the difference. It's because the people that come as colonists, like when the Arabs and the French came, as colonists.
So Gaddafi's a dictator, yeah? He's not a colonizer, but he colonized his own. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
And Gaddafi's heritage isn't from Africa.
It's not.
His heritage is from where?
From Italy.
I don't know. Where's the name Gaddafi come from?
Gaddafi's Libyan. It's a Libyan name. It's a Libyan family name. It's a Libyan family name. It's a tribe. Gaddafi basically is a tribe.
I don't know why you...
We weren't colonized by Arabs, we were colonized by French, most majority.
Gaddafi means to throw. It's an Arabic name. It means to throw.
It's Arabic.
It's a tribe. But its tribe is called Gaddafi from Turkey.
Arabic does not have any foundation in any African language. It doesn't at all. That's how you know
Arabic doesn't have
it doesn't have foundation within a native African language.
Which one?
So how is
I don't know what Saha means.
So thank you. So how is North African not African?
Yes.
Arabic, yes.
So how is North African?
This if I can come in here.
They're putting the history of North Africa in the entirety of Africa, which isn't the case.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I spoke about West.
There's a difference. The beauty of this discussion, I know, it's beautiful.
There's nothing beautiful about this discussion.
We're not fighting.
Just lengthened by Afro.
We're not. You handle everybody. You handle sister. You handle. Come, let's keep it here. You handle this whole crowd, and I was in awe. I was having a conversation back there, but one of my ears was tuned into what you were saying, and you were making a lot of very interesting points. Now, the problem, as I was saying, I think you were at the fringe of my conversation. My voice is gone because I had one before you came. And I was saying to this young brother here that the problem is in the absence of written records. People are reaching for a lot of speculation, and on top which they generally no, that's written. I'm talking about in the pre.
What about coins?
I'm trying to.
What about ancient coins?
Have some respect.
What I'm trying to explain here is simple. There are things that we will discover in the future that is going to overturn what we're discussing here. For now, we can only use this discussion as placeholders. This is what we know. Unlike when I was at university, we didn't have genetic anthropology. When that was invented or developed, we learned new things about Homo sapiens that we were not taught in the 1980s. So a lot of what we're discussing here, let us accept our limitations, that these are placeholders. What I will say about history is that if sources, ancient sources, written sources, archaeological sources support our point of view, we can assert it. If the sources are not there and we are using supposition, we have to admit that we are in the realm of supposition. When it comes to North Africa, we have this discussion. There are, as an Afrocentrist, I am in the midst of people who assert that the entire continent of Africa, here the placeholder and forgive it, was Negroid. The entire continent was black until people came and invaded. That is the ultra Afrocentric, let me land, brother. That is the Afrocentrist ultimate position. Now, as that's brother, hold on. I like to build it up properly.
You're right.
So, I don't leave room for like what he said because it's being filmed, and if I say the wrong thing, they're gonna clip it.
Just let him finish.
The haters gonna clip it, right? What I need from North Africa are actual sources, skeletal findings to prove the people there, genetic findings were Negroid. It's a placeholder. Look at the fingers. Or Africoid or Sub-Saharan. But these words have limitations. Us Ethiopians are Sub-Saharan too and are Somali. So that's why the word Sub-Saharan is insufficient for the description of the North African we're looking for. Negroid, perhaps. Let's hold it tentatively. I don't like the word. However, all I can go on is the term Mauritania. The Romans had 3 provinces in North Africa. Africa, Numidia, and the westernmost in Morocco, which corresponds to the Atlantic coast near Larache, was called Mauritania. Now, Mauritania, Maurus, has a lexical connection to the Greek Mauros, mauve, dark. It does not mean black. In Greek, black is melanos. But then humans were not necessarily called the colors that we see today. Let me come to the point. If you look at that area, I am led to suppose that that area, and this is late, the Roman period is late, that area, Mauritania, of the 3 Roman provinces, may have had darker skinned people. It could have been the last remaining outpost of the Negroid Orthochones. It could be, but the skeletal evidence so far does not hold that to be the case. But I can assume that North Africa, that bit at least, was darker skinned. Now, that is not conclusive. Linguistics is not conclusive evidence because the Berber language is related. Berber we know is a bad word too, but it's a placeholder. It's a placeholder. All right? It's related to ancient Egyptian. Now, we know that in the beginning, if you look at the Sphinx, the ancient Egyptians look like you. But come to what the end Cleopatra kind of like her. So we know in 3,000 years, the Egyptians change color. We know the reason why Hyksos, Assyrians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, and the French, and the Turks, Ottomans, and all the rest of it. The Egyptians, in 300 years of dynastic history, became progressively lighter. This could have happened to the Berber. So, my brother, it's being taped. It's going to sound like an interruption, right? So, what's happening here is perhaps in ancient history, it could be the Berbers were Negroid, jet black, and as time passed, they became progressively fairer in color, and they kept the language. So the language is still a black language, Berber or Amazigh, related to ancient Egyptian, which is related to Somali, Cushitic languages, which is related to Hausa in northern Nigeria. They're all related languages. People like Professor Christopher Ehret call them the Afro-Asian language group. Now, that too may change. I'm just telling you the latest research. That's not conclusive. So, that's one argument for a black origin of Berbers. That's one argument. However, we don't have any historical record of the fair-skinned Berber being from anywhere else. When some of them say we are from Canaan, it's just like the Yoruba saying we come from Mecca. The Yoruba say they come from Mecca. A couple of Yoruba could have come from Mecca, but because of the premium placed on the spiritual direction, Mecca and Jerusalem, a lot of modern Africans make those northeastern claims, those kind of out of Africa claims. So forget that. We are left with trying to understand, were the North Africans always white, see my fingers, or did they displace Negroid Autochthones? We have no record of that ever happening so far. Remember, I'm cautious with what I'm saying. So far, there is no record of North Africa being Negroid, and they were being displaced by Berberic, Amazighic-looking people. There is no evidence of that. What the evidence we have up to date is Arabicized Berbers enslaving blacks in where he comes from in Sahrawi and Mauritania. They call them Haratin, and Beni Hassan has been, but Beni Hassan arrived in the period of Shorbaba between the 15th and 16th century with Bani Hilal and Bani Sulaim. They are not Berbers. They are not. They are Arabs. They were chased out of Egypt by the Mamluk Sultan. Some of them remained in Libya as Cyrenaica Badu, and so the rest of them, because they were fighting against principalities, they pushed into the open desert, ended up in Mauritania and Sahrawi, and they enslaved his people and then enslaved the black people. They married into his people and they kept the black. That's why you have slavery today in Mauritania. It was abolished in 1980. I've lived in Mauritania. I know this for a fact. I've seen it with my own two eyes. So there is that. So you're making a lot of powerful points as if people refuse to engage with the continent, are they African? And your point is powerful in terms of the Afrikaner, the Boera of South Africa. Very powerful. With the Arab in the north, it becomes problematic. You raise the point of language. The Arabic language has been in Africa before Islam. The Kahwatla Arabs of the Sudan originate in the Hijaz. They travel across by sea. This is the Red Sea area. They used to travel into Kassala, the eastern part of Sudan, back and forth, long before Islam. So they had Arabic language there. Forget that. That's a minority. That cannot be made to stand for the whole of North Africa. The Professor Christopher Ehret, again, has taken the position that the Afro-Asiatic group of languages, on one wing, think of it as a bird with two wings. On one wing is the Hamitic wing. On the other wing is the Semitic wing. But all of these languages together as a cluster originated, according to Professor Christopher Ehret, in the Red Sea Hills area of northeastern Sudan, southeastern Egypt. So even the Semitic languages, of which Arabic is one, their mother or their grandmother is African. What happened was this. The Hamitic languages pushed towards the west and to the southeast. So a subgroup of the Hamitic languages, these words are placeholders. The Hamitic is not a good word either. They're placeholders. So a subgroup of the Hamitic are Cushitic, like Oromo and Somali and Afar. These are a subgroup of the Cushitic, which is a subgroup of Hamitic. Another subgroup of Hamitic is Berber and ancient Egyptian. Another one is Hausa spoken in northern Nigeria, part of the Chadic subgroup. Now, that's one wing, that's this wing. Now, this wing is the Semitic wing. That wing left through the Levant, through Palestine, Canaan, becoming Arabic, Hebrew, Aramaic, and so forth. One group of them, of the Arabic group, went south into Yemen and returned to Africa through Ethiopia, becoming Ga'ez. Ga'ez is now dead, like Latin is liturgical, from which springs Tigray. Tigrinya, and Amharic, which is the national language of Ethiopia, all derived from South Arabian. So that's what I'm saying. When you go down the rabbit hole, the idea of Arabic not being an African language needs to be unpicked a little. Why? If a language, we all have said there, pop all of them up, push all up to the side. If a language has been on the continent of Africa from the year 640 AD, right? Forget about the Kawahla Arabs, long before Islam. Forget about them for a minute, because they're more than Kawahla, there's Kababish and others who came that way as well. But forget that. Let's say the majority, the bulk of Arabic arrived in 640 AD. Sister, I put it to you that if a language has been on a continent from the year 640 AD to 2019, that language will have indigenized in its variant forms. For example, you have words in Sudan for a tree, tabaldia. Tabaldia. You Sudanese drink. Any Sudanese here, they drink Gongoles. Gongoles. What is Gongoles?
It's like this white juice.
From what tree? In English, baobab. It's baobab. But in Arabic in Sudan, they call it tabaldia. And the drink is called Gongoles. In Wolof, in Senegal, they call it bui. It's called bui. You know baobab juice. It's very nice, right? Now, that's an Arabic word, tabaldia, for the tree, the baobab tree. But it's an indigenized Arabic. And those people, they may want to call themselves Arabs, the Bagara and such people, but in fact they are Arabs in place. So look how they look like you and me. They're not different in a look. Some of them look like you. The Miseria Bagara look like you. The Rezaihat Bagara look like me. They only call themselves Arabs in contradistinction to the other people who don't speak Arabic. That is how Arabic in Africa, in every other way, their culture is African. The Bagara keep cows, like your people or your neighbors, the Dinka and the Nuer. They are cattle keepers. Sometimes in Bahr al-Ghazal, part of Sudan, they fight. And they steal cows from the Dinka steal cows from them, they rustle each other. Now, they are supposed to be Arabs, but in every part of their culture, they are Africans. In every bit of their culture. Their Arabic nature is predicated on language. They speak Arabic as a mother tongue. That is the only thing about the Bagara, in my opinion, that they say they are Arabs. So, no, but what I'm saying is, I'm trying to provide light that both of you have points. You're not getting what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to say, this sister held you guys a day with some powerful arguments, and her arguments are sound. But I realize she has a scholarly mind. So I'm throwing stuff at her that she can go home and say, let me cross-examine some of this, what I've heard today. You hear it on the tape. What if I made any mistakes, I will correct it. Sometimes you're speaking off the top. This is ad hoc, unscripted, and untitled. Whatever I'm saying here is coming straight off the top of my head. But the idea about some Arabs in Africa saying that they're African when it suits them is the point. Mauritanians keep slaves, like I said. They do it, and when it suits them, they're African. And when it suits them, yes. So we cannot pretend that this is not so. However, with Berbers, I cannot disqualify the Berber from the list of African nations. Because to do so would be to say there's something called the prototype Asian in the continent of Asia. He looks like an Indian, so the Chinese are not because they're too fair. I can't, until I find some historical evidence that they arrived, the Berbers, wiped out the autochthonous population, the indigenous population, colonized the area, and took it over. Then I can say that this is so. What I do know, some of the whitening of their skin comes from the fact that they were some of the biggest slavers of white people. They captured, during the period after the Moors were expelled from Spain, right up to the 18th century, the Berber corsairs captured white women, men, and children from as far as Iceland,
Come on, that ocean. Portuguese,
Italy,
Brazil, Spain.
And they brought so many of them there and had them for slaves. 1.2 million in about 400 years, that it would have considerably widened the population. But to me, that still does not disqualify them from the list of African peoples. The hopeless confusion has already taken place when the Arabs arrived and mixed with them. So what there is Arabs mixing with Berbers, they becoming the Moors, going into Spain, getting chucked out of Spain after 700 years. They're going to the sea, some of them becoming pirates, taking a whole bunch of white people for slaves, interbreeding with them, like what happened with us in the American plantations. So there's all that history. All I can do is provide facts. The conclusions you guys have to draw for yourselves on this subject as to what I am getting people striving at is a definition of a prototype African. I believe there's no such thing. Okay, my 2 cents? My 2 cents. There's no such thing as an African type. There are African types. There are African type. There's no prototype. I'll tell you why. When the Rift Valley occurred, some Homo sapiens grew tall because they lived on the plains.
Right,
you are an exception. All your people, they average 6.
Your limb ratio.
Your people, they're averaging the Dinka, the Nuer. You see them. So that's why I was wondering how come
scientists measure your limb ratio to figure out where you come from.
You see my brother 6.
Exactly, I know them. However,
you can be an anomaly in your family like me. I'm the shortest in my family.
You see what I'm doing now? Same Africans. No, I'm gonna get nasty on us. Let me hurt us a little bit. What happened to all them Pygmoid people? The Romans met Pygmoid. Placeholder. It's not a nice word. The Romans met Pygmoid people as far as the Niger River. The Garamantes used to sell. It's a North African tribe. They're called Tubu today. Tubu in southern Libya. Used to sell pygmies for Roman circuses. Where are they today? We tall people must have outcompeted them or wiped them out. I don't have the historical facts to say that this is so. But all that area had a larger Pygmoid population than there exists today. They are stuck in the Cameroon forest at the Baka, the Congo forest at the Ikeri Bakwa, the Sand, down in South Africa, the yellow ones, the Sand people. Where are they today? It must be at some point in our history, the same way we outcompeted Homo sapiens Neanderthalis, the Neanderthal man. It seems to me the tall African outcompeted or killed the Pygmoid people. You look at a place like Rwanda, right next to the Congo. 3 ethnic groups, the very, very tall, related to you, but not the same, the Tutsi. Then the Bantoid speaking people, the Hutu. All right, the Hutu complain of genocide, and they're right. But in the Bantu expansion started in what is today like Cameroon and eastern Nigeria. The Bantu, so they reclassified the Bantu language. Bantu is now classified as a part of the Niger-Congo languages. It's a large language group. That's why we think of the Bantu language group as separate, because it's very large. But it comes out of the Niger-Congo group. So the expansion of the Bantu is fairly recent in history. I suspect, and I don't have the facts, where the Bantu expanded, the forest parts, not the plains over in Tanzania. They expanded onto areas that were formerly populated by Pygmoid people, and we wiped them out.
So I have a question for you then. Just going back to the point of the black South Africans and outside Africans, racist. What's your opinion on that?
They are not Africans. If you, I want to give my opinion why. I strenuously deny them. I don't have the power to, but if I have the power to, I will tell them, I suggest you go back to Holland. Because these people identified with the land as colonizers. They brought a racist brand of Christianity called the Dutch Reformed Church, which called them Shabul al-Mukhtar. Shabul al-Mukhtar. This is, we are God's chosen people, and all those black people are slaves. They are born. God created them, the curse of Ham. They interpreted the curse of Ham and they colonized those people. So they identified with the riches of the land. Cecil Rhodes, gold, diamonds. He got 2 countries named after him. They never identified with the people. Their hope was to wipe out the people. And that's why I do not consider the Afrikaner, the Boer, to be an African. I do not. But I do consider the Berber to be an African. I do. And that is my point.
That was my point I was trying to make. What is it? Because
I'm gonna let it be like that. I'm gonna let it be like that for a reason. Because I'm coming up on 50 minutes, almost an hour. Obviously that makes sense. Now, basically, he's saying, in a nutshell, you can be very well from a specific persuasion, African, whatever you want to call yourself, but it wouldn't even matter, because once you look up the grandfather ancestry, African and Asian got the same grandfather ancestry. So even you trying to create a division between two different groups of people who are smarter got things that they call haplogroups, genetic groups with genetic markers that trace if it's going to be a grandfather ancestry, pre-genetic, you know what I'm saying? Third party, 3 parties beyond yours, 3 generations beyond yours, versus yours. And if the only thing that separates the African from the Asian is the Himalayan, then you're talking about a whole subgroup that's not even divided, it's combined. That's 5 to 10,000 years right there. So we really got to do specific math when it comes to dividing the world, let alone countries and groups, origins. We're not necessarily looking at what we think we're looking at, but we think we are based on modern things, mainly politics and other things, politics and religion combined. Once you swirl that up, religion teaches you the order, but if you don't pay attention to the logic inside of the religion, as far as like the Dutch viewed the curse of Ham as the Negroid people in specific areas of Africa, saying we can enslave them, but at the same time, vice versa, because in Islam you had the Moors, Ottoman Empire, blah blah blah. Then you had the Christians. That was Rome, the Roman Empire going against. Boom. You ended up that the Habsburg War. That was Rome, and the Moors versus it. That was that. Now they had that double. That now after that happened, and whoever won, as we know to this day, the double-headed eagle reigns to this day as the Habsburg crest, family crest. So you can Google that up, but that's a bloodline thing. And once you understand that, you understand a few more things when it comes to societal setups. Certain groups of people set up certain like bankers or whatever, So you got to pay attention to these things, because we all know the Bilderbergs. But then we want to say the Bilderbergs and then talk about the Illuminati and blah blah blah. If you say Illuminati, you must be talking about bankers. People with money, right? So then you got to dive into that, So just being specific and not even going on conspiracies and going out on a tangent. If you even want to use specific words to digress yourself into specific areas, you have to follow that money. If you're not following the money, it don't matter. You're spreading out profanities because it's cute and you get attention. Illuminati. Like, if you don't sit your butt down somewhere. I digress. I strong digress. But what I will do is end this on something good that you want me to end it on, and that is this. I'm gonna go ahead.
At QVC.
Oh my God, this is shit. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and play this, and then I'm gonna be out. I'm gonna play this as a finisher to nobody being here except about one person. Appreciate y'all for coming, like, follow, shit, and subscribe to your boy, DJ Vision. All right.
We make the holidays delicious. We make the holidays beautiful.
Oh my gosh. And he says, Tim, I just want to be an all-star. I'm good with that, man. I don't care to win a championship. I don't care to be on Mount Rushmore. I don't care to be one of the greatest of all. If I never make it in the Hall of Fame, I'm going to live a happy life. I'm going to be totally okay with it. So is winning to you the individual's level of success they want to have, or is winning to you somebody that goes out there and says, I want to find out what my best version looks like. I want to find out what my capacity looks like. How do you judge it?
It's by the capacity. Okay. It's always a capacity. If you don't, people, they look at winning and finishing as the same. Those individuals that you're talking about, they're just looking to finish. They're just looking to finish their career. They're like, okay, this is what I got, this nice house. I'm finished over here. I made the NBA. I made the NFL. That's finishing. And a lot of people to that, they're like, they feel like if they finish, they've won. These individuals, it's a completely different level. So you have individuals that go out and run marathons. If you compete at the highest level and you're a person that just runs marathon, the chances of you winning that marathon are pretty much zero.
Right.
But you're going to finish that marathon. But being able to finish that marathon puts you in a mindset to win at something else.
Right.
So there's always what's next? What's next? What's the next thing that's going on? We talk about what Kobe, one of his biggest lines is, don't rest in the middle. Rest at the end. Winners rest at the end. When you talk about people that just want to finish, just what you said, they rest in the middle.
For the longest time, people asked the question, what's success to you? What's success? When those questions, what's the key to success? The key to success. And I've heard a million different things, marry the right person, faith, hard work, save money, make money, read books, do all this stuff that we hear from a bunch of different people. To me, it was alignment where, your values and principles match the lifestyle you're living. So, and not worrying about what others think about you. But for you, you spend a lot of time around Mike, MJ, and you spend a lot of time around Kobe. You've spent a lot of time around a lot of other guys, Dwayne, Pat Riley, whether it's Barkley, you've spent a lot of time around these guys. But if Mike's sitting right here and we ask Kobe, okay, what's the definition of success to those two guys? What would you say their answers would be?
Well, in the book, Kobe said, winning is everything. It's everything. All right. And you sit here and you talk to Mike, whatever Kobe would say, Mike would have to one up him. Because there's still the competition never stops. It's always about what's next. What can I win more at? Both those individuals, obviously Kobe's not with us anymore, but both those individuals, the competition and the desire and the feeling of winning, even though they were done with playing, manifested into something else. MJ, the most successful sneaker brand out there. All right. Owning a team, tequila business, in the sports gambling business. He's in all those things. All right. So the competition never stops. With Kobe, it was like, I'm going to win an Oscar. Go out and win an Oscar. Writing children's book. He literally, his goal, his plan was to take over Hollywood. He was like, I owned LA on the basketball court, and now I want to own LA. He wanted to take, that was his winning thing. Take the basketball out of it. Everyone knows I own LA on the basketball court. And we talked about this. He goes, own LA. Own LA. And if you look at the paths he was going through, that's what he was doing. That was his next definition of winning.
I wouldn't bet against the guy. I would not bet against the guy. We had him over at the event, and I gave him a couple gifts. I gave him a script. I think, by Star Wars, and it was signed. It was the original script. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he was fascinated about that. Like when we were having a conversation in the back, all he was talking about was storytelling. It was like an obsession that he had. So here's a different question for you. So the feeling of winning, obviously, is a million times better than you think it's going to feel like.
Yes.
Surprisingly, it's just a ridiculous feeling that you go there. Movies do very well because in the storyline, somebody ends up winning. And the audience comes and says, oh my gosh, what a great underdog story. I love this movie, Pursuit of Happiness. I love watching, Invincible. The guy ends up playing for, the Jets, a regular bartender guy. I love watching this guy winning. I love watching all these different things.
I think he played for the Eagles.
Eagles, you're right. Yes. Philadelphia, that's right. I said Jets. The story's about the city of Philadelphia. You're right. So you see all these different movies do well because we see somebody winning, right? We see somebody winning. Why don't most people subscribe to wanting to find out what their capacity looks like and go at the highest level? They enjoy the story, but why don't they want to commit to it?
Because they rather participate.
Why
they want to just participate. They want to participate in somebody else's win, because that's where their euphoria comes from, because they want to see they know what winning feels like, but what it takes to go down that unforgiving race to winning, they don't want to do because it's just too hard. So they rather stay in the middle. They rather stay, because that's where majority of the comfort is. It's in the middle. Everybody wants to be seen until it's time to be seen. Winning, in order to win, you have to be seen. And once everyone can see you, you become a target. You become a target. So everyone has their perception of winning as this glorious thing. And it is. But the book talks about everything that goes along that path and what winning will bring you. And it's not always what you anticipate to be. You can look at yourself. Yeah. You can look at myself. You can look at any successful person, any person that's going for more wins, that's going for their full potential. And they sit back and you have times and you're just like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And then it may hit you for a split second. But then you become, I know exactly why I'm doing this. Mm-hmm. Those other people, when they say, why am I doing this? That why wins. With the people that continue to win, that why doesn't exist. Like, I know why I'm doing this.
So do you think those who say, well, I don't know if it's something worth me paying the price, is it the fear of the criticism? Do they know that they're going to get that kind of criticism, or they don't know that? It's just, I don't think it's worth me paying the price to get this, because what if it doesn't work out? And what if I can't do it? Is it a belief thing? Is it they don't have the level of obsession? Is it they don't have the chip? Is it they don't have the point to want to prove to somebody? What would you point at?
It's all the above.
Okay, got it.
It's all the above. See, what everybody's trying to figure out, you get this question all the time. I get this what's the one thing? Boy, I wish it was that simple. That's the one thing. So everybody, what's the one thing to success? What's the one thing to your success? What's the one thing to making it? What's the one thing to winning? Man, if it was that easy, everybody'd be doing it. People, everyone has, and this drives me crazy. This drives me absolutely crazy. And I was told by another individual that the one thing I have to do in my in my teachings is I have to do steps.
Do a step.
I have to do steps. 4. I have to give people 5 steps, 10 steps, so forth. Steps. And I'm not a step person. I'm just not. It's not something that's worked for me. It's not something that's worked for the individuals. I know it simplifies things and helps people out. But when you look at the road to winning, people look at you and they're like,
still getting
you're a success.
Right.
All right. But your road has so many more steps. Those steps are infinite. Sometimes you get to see them. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes they're there. Other times they're wobbly. And you don't know if that next step is going to be there, but you have enough belief in yourself to say, I know it's there. I'm going to take that step. I may miss the step. I may fall. I may get scraped. That step may go into quicksand, but I know there's another step. I know it. I believe inside me that there's another step that I have to take, that somebody else isn't making me take. And you continue to take those. Those steps are infinite. Winning is infinite. Those steps.
At QVC, we make the holidays delicious. We make the holidays beautiful. We make the holidays fun.
Are infinite, and your deaf people don't want to continue to take those steps. I don't care what kind of shape an individual's in. The greatest athletes, all right, as much training as they ever do, if you've ever had to run up a flight of steps, it's hard. It's extremely difficult. All right. So when people say there's 10 easy steps, or there's 5 steps of greatness, or those steps to me are infinite. And even when you put that plan out there, people aren't willing to even take those 5 steps.
That's a good point. Tim, reading. So intuition for you've trained the best of the best in the game of basketball. What signs do you get? I guess the question for me would be, even prior to Michael becoming Michael, or Kobe becoming Michael, or Kobe becoming Kobe, when you're training somebody, what signs does somebody give you to say, this guy is potentially a guy that could be a guy at that level? And at that level, I mean, these guys have made it at the highest level of a game. It's not like they're the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
So you're talking about whoever is in the NBA today, they're a Hollywood celebrity on the high school campus. Everyone on college campus knows them. Then you go into the NBA, like, oh shit, I'm a bench warmer. I'm coming up, and it's all-star. Then it's this, then it's that. What signs do you see where you say, this guy's different? There's something about this guy that's different. There's something about her that's different. What are those signs that you see that he said there's a very distinct difference between this guy and that guy? He's just as talented. She's just as talented, but there's something very weird and different about his personality. What are some of those things?
If you just pay attention to the details, you get those distinctions are easy to see. All right. Everybody talks about working hard, showing up early, showing up late, doing all. Everybody can do that. It's the mannerisms of the way they carry themselves. It's the way they compete. It's the way they listen. It's the way they absorb information, how coachable they are. The one thing all my athletes in business, in sports, the best of the best are so coachable. They listen. They listen. They absorb the information. They pay attention. They're there. They're willing. They want that information, and they know the difference between false information and information that can actually work for them. Kobe had with the first interview they did with Kobe, when they said, "Oh, you hired Tim Grover, you hired MJ guy. What do you think about him?" He goes, "He ain't done shit for me yet. I don't know." He was like, "Yeah, he did great things for MJ, and he's done great things for other things. He ain't done nothing for me. I don't know."
Setting the tone.
Setting it right there.
How did you process that when you heard that?
I wouldn't expect anything else. I didn't do anything for him.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. And too many people look at the history of what they've done in the past. They look at their past wins, their past successes. These individuals, they've always won. When you look at that competitive person, you can always see. With Kobe, I saw it very early when in the playoffs against Utah when he shot all those air balls. At that, he was 17. He came in the league at 17, so he was like 18 or 19 when he did that. All right. For most individuals, that would have just totally killed their confidence. How did he come back? How did he handle it? Did he run from the adversity? Did he run from the media? What did he do? No, he came back and owned what he did, and says, "I'm coming back. I'm coming back for more. I'm coming back for more." For MJ, it was just never forgetting that he got cut from the varsity team when he tried out as a sophomore. And there's another story that, people don't know. Few people know this. So everyone told him, don't go to North Carolina. So he says, no, I'm going because you're never going to play. You're going to be on the bench. So he goes to North Carolina, and I'm pretty sure, Buzz Peterson was the number 1 ranked player in high school that year, and he also went to North Carolina. So Dean Smith comes in, and he makes them roommates, and Dean was like, he goes, "Michael, I want you to meet Buzz Peterson. Buzz Peterson is the number 1 ranked player last year in high school as the number 1 recruit." And Michael first thing goes to Dean, he goes, "He ain't never played me. How can he be number 1?"
Now, let me ask you, when Dean did that, did Dean know Jordan's wiring, or he did not?
Yeah,
so he did already. So Dean knew how to poke.
Yes.
Okay.
That's it. And he's just trying to see, because he wanted to say, okay, I know what this kid has. Now, how I just laid something out for him. First day of practice. Let's see where he takes it. All right. And then Michael's response, he never played me? How could he be number 1? And now people say things. Now, are they actually going to do it? The one thing all these individuals had after each championship, while everybody was celebrating, they would come and give me a hug and say, "What's next? What's next?" Because they're like, we can't come back the same. If we come back the same, winning is no longer going to greet us. I have a thing in the book where the bus takes you to the arena. Right? It says where it's going. You get on that bus, you win the championship, and then when you get back on that same bus after you've won the championship, the sign is changed. It doesn't say the destination to the hotel. It says this bus ride is back to hell, because if you're not willing to take that ride, this will be your last win. Every single successful person, every single one that you've had, every single win, the next one's a little bit more difficult. It's a little bit harder to get. You become more smarter. You become more educated. You know more, but you can't come back. You cannot come back the same individual, especially when you're trying to repeat at something
you got to go
that
higher.
You've already won at.
You got to.
So to win the first Oscar, to win that second, Anthony Hopkins was 85.
Break the next mode.
85. I don't know when he won the one before that.
Unbelievable. Break the next mode.
Unbelievable.
Break the next mode.
But those things are just, and those are things you look for in individuals. It's just like, what can I see in Game 6 after
Jazz?
No, this was with Kobe. Game 6, they lost to Boston. All right, and they're having dinner, and I never worked for the organization, so there's certain things that I had to stay away from. So he's sitting there and he's having dinners with the coaches and the team, and then he's different individuals, and then I get a text to say come on down, and he's sitting down. Kobe and I were having this conversation, And this is already, remember, he's already won 3 championships. So this was going for number 4. And he sits there and he has this conversation with me and he goes, man, I hit him with everything but the kitchen sink. And I looked at him, I said, what the hell are you saving the sink for? And he just gave me that mama glare. I said, how many times do people go through in life?
What a thing to say back to the guy. Why you? That's crazy to say that. Did his reaction to you get pissed at you? Was his reaction like, you're right? What's his reaction?
He didn't have to say a word.
Okay.
He didn't have to say it. We were so in tune, he didn't have to say a word.
Got it.
When the minute I saw that look, he knew exactly. He knew exactly.
Was he a what do you think guy? Was he a what do you think guy or no? Meaning, like, if something's happened to the game, hey, Tim, what do you think about the game I played today?
He would want the information, but the thing is, we would only discuss things that I saw that could have been done better. But these guys are so in tune to what they do before you even point out. They're already like, I already know, because their obligation to themselves is so much greater than anybody else's obligation to them. And they understand the difference between criticism and feedback. They know the difference between the two. And then basically the difference between the two is how you hear it. That's
it. Is it the level of sensitivity or level of, so how much of it is, because sometimes you give feedback to a guy, they're too sensitive. Oh my gosh, you're right, I did this. Is it that, or is it, then there's certain people you give the feedback to, they're like, why would you say something like, no, it's not true, I don't agree with you? Or is it also the fact that the person has to 100% be a proven guy like you who knows what they're doing to take the feedback from them? Meaning Kobe. I'm sure he didn't take feedback from a lot of different people.
No, you can't take feedback from everyone. You just can't.
Very small circle of
people. Very small circle of people, and very small people who've actually delivered results. That have actually delivered results.
Were both guys that trusted easily or no?
No.
Neither one of them.
No, none of them trusted. They did not trust easily. They did not trust easily. All right. You had to earn their trust every single day. People always say, hey, they say, you got to respect me. Well, I had to give them something to respect every single day. I had to work harder than they did.
Yeah.
I had to work harder than they did. I tell the story about early down in the MJ days of how I won and how I wanted to separate myself. When I first started with MJ, there was no Fitbit. There was none of this information. There was none of this information available. So how could I do something that I knew was right, that would bring me closer to winning, that would bring me closer to him to say, hey, I'm paying attention to the details. So I would go to the games. All right. And this is years ago. And I don't even know how many people in this audience are going to remember this, but there used to be a recording machine called a Betamax or a VHS machine where you actually had to put a tape in and it would record. So I would record all the games. All right. Because when I'm at the game, I don't have time. I'm trying to watch what I'm seeing. So the games would finish. By the time we got out of the locker room, it would be 10:30, 11 o'clock. Sometimes we'd go out and get a bite to eat. So I get home about 12:30. I have to rewatch the game because the workout next morning is either at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., or 7 a.m. All right. I have to rewatch the game because I have to count his steps. I have to count. I have to count his steps. Not only just count his steps. I got to know how many times he went right, how many times he went left, when he went backward. Did he land on
and
left?
How are you using that? How are you using that for what? How is that intel giving you
to plan the next workout? So I'm like, okay, so if here it is, everybody like when people go work out and they think about training, they're like, okay, I'm going to do 10 reps on one side and 10 reps on the other side. All right. Well, if during that game he's going one way more often than he's going the other, I can't work out the legs the same. I can't work out the body the same. You can't work out the same.
That's crazy.
You can't. And I'm doing this, and people were looking at me crazy. Well, why does he have a 15-pound dumbbell in one hand and a 30-pound dumbbell in the other hand? Or why does he have a basketball in one hand and he has a 40-pound dumbbell? People were just like, "What are you doing? What are you doing over here?" And I'm like, this side of the body does not need the resistance that this side of the body does. Some days they may be equal, other days they may be different. One day we may all say, listen, we're only going to work this half of the body, we're only going to work this half of the body out. We're not even doing this half. This half is designated for recovery, this half is designated for a workout.
Right.
All right. And those were the details that I paid attention to. And that's how I got when I spoke, they paid attention. They paid attention to me. Winning didn't know my name. Winning doesn't know who the hell you are.
Did you hear that? Winning doesn't know your name. And winning doesn't know who the hell you are. So I want to finish on that note. Sometimes we lose. But guess what? Sometimes we win. Appreciate y'all. Like, follow, share, and subscribe to your boy, DJ Vision. All right. Appreciate y'all. Let's get it. Yeah. I thought it ended.